Okay, so welcome to another conversation on the future of work and human-computer interaction. I would like to quickly acknowledge the National Science Foundation for partially funding this effort, and also the organizers, Linda Boyle, John Lee, Rafaela Sadeghian, Manfred Chelgi, and of course, Orit, Cher, and myself are here. And it's wonderful to have Shadan Sadeghian with us today. Welcome, Shadan. Shadan is a postdoc at the University of Siegen, and she got her PhD at Oldenburg with Susanne Boll. And she was also at Max Planck Institute in Tübingen for a while, as well as Fraunhofer Institute, FKIE. And her research focuses on designing interactions and user experiences in automated vehicles and automated systems and production management context. So welcome, Shadan. Thank you for joining us. And I wanted to, hi, I should probably let people speak, right, when I say hello to them.
I just wanted to say thanks for the introduction.
Shadan, the conversation we're going to have today focuses on issues of technology, of society. And I wanted to start with automation and technology, and I'm especially curious about your experiences with trucks. So you had a project several years ago with automated trucks. And from that technology perspective, the automation technology perspective, what do you think? How close are we to having automated trucks on the road? And also, what does that really mean to have automated trucks on the road? What will be automated? What might not be automated? What do you think?
That was actually the very first project I did with Cars at All, starting in 2014. That was an EU project on truck platooning. The project was called Companion. And for those who might not know what platooning is, a platoon is a train of trucks. And in the context of that project, I looked, the trucks were longitudinally automated. That means that the distance between the trucks in this platoon or in this train of trucks was, and their speed control was automated, but the driver still could steer and like go left and right. And why did we do that? And what is the benefit is that it was saving fuel and costs, and then saving space on the road and increasing the safety of the drivers and reducing CO2 emissions. And back then it was already, so because this was happening through vehicle-to-vehicle communication. And there was already the technology to control the longitudinal control and to automate the longitudinal control. And there was already also lane assistance systems, so that they were also controlling the lateral control. So if we just think of the movement of the truck, the technology was already back in 2014 even there. But since then, I'm also looking into this, how it's proceeding and how it's going further. And I see a lot of logistic companies or a lot of industries promising that, for example, I saw a couple of, I think, weeks ago, a company promising that automated trucks are coming on the road next year. And if you ask me how they look like, or if would they come on the road, I'm not 100% sure if I would see a driverless truck coming on the road, because with other traffic participants, because I think it would be a mixed traffic scenario, which I am not sure if we are ready for, given the communication between the automated and non-automated vehicles and so on. Would there be how would it look like? I think the cockpit would look the same, because I think there will be a steering wheel. I think the next thing will be still level 3 at its best. And the driver might not always have to control the maneuvers, but might need to be there to plan the fleet. If they want to, for example, go for the platooning, there's still tasks in the logistic companies that need human negotiation, for example, with the companies which are giving the goods, with other logistic companies which are joining platoons and so on. and for sure for the scenarios of taking over the control when the automation cannot handle it. So that's how I'm seeing it coming in the future from what I read from both academia and industry. Yeah, that's it, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. If you're in the audience and you have questions for Shadan, then please put them in the chat, or we'll be moderating those as we go along. So going back to trucks, what about the user interfaces? So what have you learned about the user interface aspect of it, of automating trucks and having the driver in there?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I did this project on truck platooning, but after that I was mostly looking into designing user interfaces for automated vehicles in general. What is different when we are designing interfaces for automated vehicles, we're looking at the interaction of a human and a vehicle, which is a means for transporting this human from point A to B. And that's it. But when we are talking about trucks and truck drivers, it's not just that, it's a means for fulfilling their economical needs because it's their job. And it's also for a means for fulfilling their needs for competence, because they are having this different driver's license, which tells them that you're skilled to do another task. And they are really proud. When I traveled a lot with truck drivers for several days and several hours and observed them and interviewed them on this project. And they are very proud and confident. And there's a competition between who is a better truck driver, for example. And then when you look at them talking about their performance and the output of their work, they're just talking about themselves and their own performance. When you bring automation to the road, they're talking about this collaboration with this so-called teammate or partner in this context, which they don't know how it's going to act in specific situations and how it's going to perform and affect their vision of their career or their job as a person who is a professional in their task. So back in the time when we looked at truck platooning, for example, interfaces, we were always seeing this example of a row of trucks and where are you in the truck platoon? But after we did a lot of observations and interviews, we found out that that's not what matters to the truck driver. We found that, first of all, they want to know what is their relationship with this vehicle when they don't have the situation as before. Because, for example, in our case, it was that they don't see the road anymore. All they see is the rear of the front truck, which is 8 meters away now, not 80 meters away. And they don't have any or very limited situational awareness. And then it was very important that this cabin that they are spending 8 hours or more per day, how it's gonna make them feel safe, first of all, and how it's gonna collaborate with them, the whole system running this cabin to make a good, first of all, impression. And also, so because I'm insisting on this impression, because this is a very sensitive topic when you tell truck drivers about taking their jobs away. And also how they feel, like how they understand each other, because it was very important to talk about what state the truck is at, so what level of automation, what it can handle, how it's going to react to hazardous situations, how this should be communicated to the truck driver when any decisions is made, and what's next. And when we come to the point, what's next, then maybe this bigger horizon matters. And then we need to think about the whole platoon, the whole road. Before that, it was just important what's happening with me, with my truck, the truck in front of me and behind me, and that's it. And that's why it was very important to drive with them and also consider them, what are the factors that let them trust this team worker in this context. Yeah.
Thank you. That's very interesting. I wanted to shift topics a little bit, and you mentioned that you worked on automated vehicles or cars basically, as opposed to trucks. And one aspect of this that you explored in great detail is ambient displays. And so can you tell us about this a little more? So what kind of, first of all, what kind of ambient displays have you explored in cars?
Yeah. Well, like any PhD student, or not any, but most of the PhD students who end up working with cars in their projects, I started looking into distraction from driving. And then after that, task switching and interruptions. And then when I looked at automated vehicles, I recognized this is a more potential situation for such task switching, because it allows, and driving automation allows people to engage themselves in non-driving tasks, and which are, according to existing research, are tasks such as reading, such as surfing the internet, or maybe working on your laptop, or maybe engaging in conversations. But most of the tasks that people are willing to engage in, tasks which need focal visual attention, and that requires them to look at, not perceive the environment as much as they need to, if they need to take the control back from the vehicle. And that's a very important fact, because until this automation reaches the level that is needless of human reaction or interference, it reaches the level that it is at the level that requires the human takeover when it fails. And in that case, that human is completely out of the loop. And then I was thinking, how can I help that human who is out of the loop to know more about the environment, and not just be surprised that, hey, take over, but hey, take over, but I know also this and that. I know I have a leader that is not working as perfectly as it should be because it's foggy outside, but it knows that there's an obstacle there. I have information that maybe if you brake now, it's better, but I cannot do it myself. And or I know that the urgency of the situation is like that you should do something in 10 seconds, or you should do something in 20 seconds. So that's the urgency of the situation. And I thought this kind of information, if you convey this kind of information to the driver, maybe this contextual information helps the driver to understand what they should do better and lead to better performance. So I thought that, okay, their visual focal attention is taken by the task they're doing. So I have to look into something else. So for sure, auditory channel came to my mind, but I also looked into different models of multimodal interaction, like the ones by Parasuraman and Wickens. And I found that also multimodal interaction results in better responses, which in case of urgent situations is a faster and more precise response. And then I thought, okay, I need another channel to add to the auditory channel. And then I use peripheral visual light cues for conveying this information. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm curious about what we can do with these displays. And, you know, first of all, I'm wondering what you think about how quickly people will need to respond, especially, you know, we're talking about level 3 automation. So that's cars that you can let the car drive, but it can call you back relatively quickly. So I'm curious about how quickly you think that is. And then how does that relate to your ability to respond to these cues, these visual cues in your peripheral vision?
Yeah, I mean, there are several papers. When I started, there was this whole really debate of how long it takes to take over. And there were papers with simulation studies from Gold and Bengler and the colleagues, which were looking at these 7 seconds, or measures like 5 seconds, urgent takeover, 7 seconds, and so on. So I put my base back in the time in simulator studies on this 5 seconds and said that, okay, let's imagine your obstacle is 5 seconds ahead and your car doesn't know what to do. And then I started looking at the information that can be conveyed. And it's quite interesting to know how much you can convey through just simple light in your periphery, because just by changing the color, the brightness, the saturation, and the movement of these light patterns that you're using, I could convey information about urgency, either you should brake or steer, or where is the obstacle on the road, and so on. And what was very interesting was that it could be also mapped to the auditory cues, because, for example, in one scenario, I had like navigational cues, like left to right, right to left, which was coming from the auditory channel with head transfer functions and so on. And then I used, for example, if I had a looming sound, which is really often used for communicating braking, because it's coming towards you and gives the driver the perception that, okay, something is coming towards me and then I have to brake now. And then I mapped the visual peripheral motion exactly to the frequency of the looming sound. And then I compared it to a baseline or control condition where there was not such a cue, or there was a cue which was in static form. I saw a significant effect, which was actually, in terms of time, 250 milliseconds, but in terms of distance, it was 9 meters at that speed, which could avoid an accident. And so that's very interesting. What was very interesting for me is that just by changing the motion pattern of the visual cue in your periphery, and not even the audio, there would be such a big effect in how you take over and how safer your maneuvers get.
That's exciting. So let me switch topics a bit, and you explored this idea of mobility and sustainability, and there was a mobile HCI 2020 workshop where you were the leader of that. So what is your opinion? How can mobility and sustainability coexist?
That's a good question. We actually started with this idea in a coffee break in Auto UI 2018, if I'm not mistaken, where we were talking about, are we contributing to making more cars while there's a high debate on climate change, and are we actually contributing to making the CO2 emission higher? The contra argument was that we are making cars which are electric cars, which are automated, driving better than humans, so saving fuel and also less stop and go behavior. So no. On the other side, we were saying that, but if you have automated cars, people are able to travel at the times they wouldn't already. For example, when you're working, you cannot drive, but when you have an automated car, that's not the case anymore. Or if you have an automated car and you're an elderly or disabled or a child, you can just sit in the car and the car can drive you. So that increases the probability of the times people travel. Or also it might even encourage behavior such as letting your car ghost drive in the city to avoid paying parking tickets. And then there's a question that, where's the balance? And are we really reducing this effect, or are we like contributing in a positive or a negative way to the climate change? And this led to a workshop in CAI 19 on the topic. And during this workshop, we found out that it's actually not about the cars, just like solely thinking about automated cars. It's about the whole mobility behavior, because depending on how you behave as a traffic participant. So if you have technology that is designed to change your behavior towards, for example, for going from A to B, for example, if I have my navigation app, like a Google map, which tells me what's the fastest way, if it would tell me what's the most sustainable way of traveling, that might change my behavior. Then I might take a last mile solution, like a bike or an e-scooter, to the train station, take the train, and then from there share a ride with someone else. That is a completely different. That has a completely different outcome than driving a solo car. And in that case, we kept on looking at it, and we kept on looking at what could be the technologies that are designed to encourage such behavior change by informing the people, by motivating them, and by actually letting this behavior sink in you, and then like you get used to this behavior and become daily practices in your life. But now we are at the level that we still are looking for the reasons why people don't do such things, because we think people know about the whole climate change stories. And then the question is that why don't they do it? One reason we found is that people try to justify their behaviors, like by examples, by saying that, why should I not drive my car when I'm a vegetarian? Or why should I not drive my car when I am when I'm not traveling by plane, or when others are taking cruise trips all the time? Why should I give up my car when there is so many industries contributing to CO2 emissions? And they all also say that there is a 6 to 10% of the whole effect, which is caused by the car travel. But if we try to make people understand that this 6 to 10% actually matters, and this doesn't deny the fact that the other industries should also change their behavior, but that's also maybe our part, and then design technologies to change our part of it, then that would be already, I think, more than good enough. But we are still looking at it.
That's interesting. I see Diana has not a question, but a comment.
I had a question.
You also have a question, but you have this comment about the electric vehicles, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if Shadan, you want to respond to that comment, but yeah, automation and electric vehicles do sort of seem to come hand in hand in many of these discussions.
Yeah, sure. So the thing is that there is no question that electrical vehicles are better for the environment than the like fuel-based vehicles, but we still don't know where is the source of the electricity. So, and that's one question. And then the other one is that even if we think of the electrical vehicles, there is I mean, an electrical vehicle shared by multiple people is better than several electrical vehicles, like transporting these people. And yeah, for sure, electrical vehicles are better, but then you have to see where what is making the bigger effect, and there need to first of all find out what makes the bigger effect, and then try to focus the design of the technologies towards that direction to change the behavior and encourage such behaviors, actually. Did I answer your comment?
Yeah, great, thank you. So let's take some questions. So if you have questions, type them in the chat, and we can start with Diana.
So you mentioned the autonomous trucking vehicles, and you did that study talked about a while ago in 2014. So I was wondering how the trucking landscape has changed in the last decade, and what you see as the biggest advancements in the industry have been.
I have to admit, I was not, maybe in the last 2 years, I was not very aware of the research projects running in this domain, but I was following at least the industry news on this, and I was for sure coming to AutoUI and seeing like what are the research contributing to AutoUI. The answer to that is that I haven't seen something further than L3 discussions in that case. And the biggest problem with trucking industries is not the question of whether the trucks are able to drive or not. It's the question of the jobs being taken by the automation. And then that's the more, let's say, important or bold question. And that's why people are much more focusing on that side, that where is the descaling effect of the truck drivers when things are automated, or where is the chance for truck drivers to increasing their skills so they don't feel completely left out or like dismissed from the whole system of the logistic industry. And there is, I think these are the more important questions, because the rest is more or less is about the maneuvering of a heavy duty vehicle, which is in terms of size, as acceleration control and mechanics different, but in terms of automation, I see it not very differently from normal vehicles.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I think Dave has a follow-up question.
I will just speak about it. So I was just wondering, yeah, in your opinion, to what extent do you think that all the insights we get from research on trucks can be generalized to other forms of cargo transport, like delivery pods and other smaller vehicles even? Because oftentimes with trucks, a big factor that plays a role is the size. And then there has been plenty of research about the size and size arrival effect as well. People are more hesitant in front of bigger vehicles. And I was wondering, yeah, I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
I'm not, if I understood your question, so I understood two parts of your question. One is that the smaller vehicles contributing to logistic industry and being automated, and from the perspective of the drivers whose jobs are being taken. And then the other was the attitude of other traffic participants toward truck drivers, or?
As well, yeah, because I often tend to think from the lens of the other road user, because that has been a lot of the focus of my research in the last few years. And so I was wondering, like from the perspective of other road users, oftentimes this the presence of a truck, of a large vehicle, tends to play a huge role. And then in some ways, trucks can be a little bit different from other passenger vehicles also in terms of their usage of shared space, for instance, in loading docks or in mines or these kinds of situations, which are a bit different from other like usual ordinary automated cars. So that was my context for the question.
Okay. Well, there is a common understanding that everybody is more vulnerable when it comes to truck because of the size and the damage that it could be caused to them. And but if we think of automation systems that are being designed for trucks, for example, platooning, if we think that such systems are increasing the safety and the behavior, like the safer behaviors of these huge vehicles, for other road participants, it would be definitely a benefit, and they would feel, I think they would trust them more, because they know that it's not just in the hand of a human who is driving for God knows how many hours, and they might also not haven't taken the breaks they were supposed to take, because that's also the attitude towards, when you also talk to the truck drivers, they were saying that if everybody yawns in their cars, it's okay. But if I yawn, everybody freaks out. They're afraid of me that I'm going to damage something big. And that's what one thing which is important. And then the truck is driving by an automated system that is presumed to drive safer and cause less harm potentially, then other traffic participants, I think, also trust the whole traffic system more. I hope that I have answered at least to some parts of your question.
Oh, sorry, I had to unmute. Yeah, you did. I did have a small follow-up question in a slightly different area. Can I continue?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I was very interested, Shadan, in what you said earlier about like the ambient displays, what helps people in making an informed takeover decision is not only just the fact that you have to take over, but also some additional contextual information that this is what like I can help help with the with some additional information. And that's where I wonder if the car already knows something about the environment, why wouldn't it just do it? Why would it have to say that, okay, I know everything what's going on, but you have to do it? What are some examples in which that the car knows what's going on, but it still cannot take an action? That maybe it's very obvious, but in my mind, I couldn't think of. So I just wanted to hear some thoughts.
It's actually one of the questions that I've been asked, I think, the most about my work. And it makes totally sense when you hear it. But there are a couple of modules. There is one module which senses the environment. Then there is a module that processes it and then makes the decision. And then there is a module which does the maneuvering. And when you think of, for example, the LiDAR as a module which senses the environment, for example, I'm talking about the time I was doing my research, there was a specific frequency that you get data, or the rate that you get data from the LiDAR. And this frequency changes when there's fog on the road, for example. And that makes the system to be not reliable enough. The system still can sense some obstacle, but not with the certainty that it used to make the decision. And therefore, the system can say that, okay, take over. I'm sensing something there, but I'm not going to do anything about it because I am not at the level, at the threshold that I'm certain enough to make a decision and do a maneuver. And that's where, for example, the person has to take over. Another example is that when you're at a zebra line, there's a person standing and the sensors feel, it's not an urgent case, but the sensors feel that there's a human being is there, but from the body language, they don't know whether this person is just standing there talking on their phone, or they're willing to cross. And they don't know when is the point that the car has to actually proceed with the driving. And that's where also a non-urgent takeover has to happen. So these are two examples of urgent and non-urgent takeovers that the car knows, but doesn't know what to do.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Thanks, Shadan.
Sorry. And going back to track, Patrick has a question.
Yeah. Hi. My question is regarding automated trucks and the motivation for the transport companies to buy the trucks, because where I see a difference in trucks and personal vehicles is that if a personal vehicle, or I don't know, a Tesla or someone has a cool feature, I buy it for myself because I like it, because I want to have it. But transport companies, they don't drive the trucks, so they're just interested in saving money. And therefore I would be interested if you talk to the transport companies if there's any other incentive or motivation for them to invest into automated technology apart from saving money. Because what I'm following this discussion of the blind spot assist, which is still not forced legally to use in Germany, for example, but it's available for like 6 years or something. But the transport companies, they don't buy trucks with a blind spot assist because it does not save them money. So yeah, I would be interested if there's any other motivation.
Yeah. Automating the trucks, for example, in the case of the project I work in the form of platooning, was saving a lot of fuel. It's much less. It was using much less fuel significantly in comparison to when it was not automated, and that already is a motivation for the companies to, for example, invest in automated trucks. The other one is that we were working with a logistic company from Spain, transporting fruits to different parts of Europe, and they were saying that, for example, the whole stop and go behavior damages the fruit so much by that's done by the truck driver, damages the fruits. And for example, countries in South Europe, a lot of goods that are transparent are fruits and vegetables. And they had so much damaged goods arriving because of the bad driving behavior of the truck drivers, that it was an advantage for them to automate the whole, for example, longitudinal control, to avoid this stop and goes just by the wrong perception of the driver, by just like break in the different traffic situations. And that was also for the safety of the goods and the quality of them when they arrive. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So I want to go back to one point that you mentioned, which is kind of the importance of communication between different road users. And I want to talk about a research method that you apply, which is kind of user enactment. And if you can tell us a little bit more what it is and how it can be applied to address the issues of communication.
Yeah. I was co-author in, and I collaborated in 2 projects where we applied user enactment as a method for exploring the experience of users in a futuristic, not yet existing technology, which includes for sure automated vehicles. And if you look at it, you might think that it's Wizard of Oz. But what is the difference? And it is to some extent very similar to Wizard of Oz technique, where you replace a human, we replace the automated system with a human, and then you explore the interaction between the user of the system and this automated system. But what is different in enactment is that it doesn't just limit you to this one-to-one interaction, but also it allows you to experience the whole experience. For example, in one of these studies, we had a valet parking scenario where the users were having their cars parked in a garage, and by a valet parking assistance system, which was a human hiding in the car. But it was not just about how the car is parked and what you see as information. It was also about how the experience is at a rainy day when you have to wait for your car. You're not going to the garage anymore. Everything is automated and you have to stay in the rain for your car to come out. Or in another example was, and then you would decide what kind of information you want to have when you don't know, for example, which level of the garage is going to, which parking space is taking, and so on. And another example was that there was an AI assistance system which was in the car, and we had it replaced by a human talking in the background for sure. But what was interesting in this scenario was not just how the driver or the user of the automated car talks with their assistant, but in a scenario where the assistant is setting up a meeting with your friends to set the time and then pick them up in different places and then go to their places and pick them up, how would it be? Because then it's a different scenario when the AI is not just dialing a number and talking to you and telling you the results. It's calling some people on your behalf, and then you're going there because of the arrangements this AI has made, and then you experience these 2 people also coming in the car. It's not only limited to you, it's limited to the whole, it's related to the whole environment, the whole experience, and join other people being affected by these decisions and these interactions. And the plus point with it is that it helps you to have the whole, include people in a co-design process and reflect on the whole experience, which is not always possible in a lab study. For example, it was a coincidence that it was raining on our valet parking experience day, but it was it ended up giving us some results that we didn't even think of on that day because we went for an enactment. And I think this wouldn't be possible if we would have done a simulator study in that case. And then we would also gain some intakes, what would be needed to design such a product for the automated vehicles.
Yeah, so I really like this, and especially how it surprises you as a researcher because of the kind of conditions that you can't necessarily control. And I think that Andreas had a follow-up question on this method. Andreas?
Yeah. Hello. Maybe I missed something, but I'm very curious. Did you, in this enactment method, did you also consider the perspective of the truck? So did someone plate the truck and talked about the experience from the perspective as a truck?
So unfortunately, these enactment studies were not related to the truck project. So, and it was only about an automated about a car with an automated valet parking function.
Or did someone plate the automated car?
Yes, there was someone who played the automated car. Yeah. And
then you also talked about the experience from the car, right?
The person who was driving.
No, the machine.
No, we did. So my co-author is writing that we did. So
yeah, a little bit. Just an example. So in that one study, the AI was played by a woman researcher from the group, and she was connected via a telephone. And she was scripted, of course, but she had to respond to what the driver said. And we didn't make it very formal, but of course she, after that, commented on how she experienced these dialogues, which had been at times quite shady, I have to admit, although the car was full. So these people, mostly men, treated the AI in a way that the woman that played the AI didn't find especially appropriate. So yeah, in a way, we also do this. The other thing was in a parking garage, someone played the car. We didn't really inquire there because there wasn't that much interaction, actually, because it was valet parking. So you gave the car away and there was no real interaction with that car. But it's a good point, and that's also something that is really great with enactments, that you can also enact the technology and get an idea of how that interaction feels maybe also different.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the valet parking because in that case the person has replaced the car, and then the other case the person replaced the AI and then had to also act sometimes spontaneously because there were scripts that we hadn't thought of back in the time. I mean, we didn't expect that even to happen. So.
Great, thank you, and thank you, Mark, for joining. So the last question will be from Hatis. I hope that I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Hatice.
Hi, yes, it's Hatice here. Hello, Shadan. Sorry, I have missed the first part, so I hope my question is somehow related to the beginning of your talk. I was wondering if sustainable driving can be thought as a prosocial driving in a broad sense as well. So I'm trying to combine these two on my mind somehow. What are your thoughts about it?
Oh, that's actually a very good question, because I talked about sustainable mobility in relation to the Mobility and Kai workshops we conducted, but also we had this work on prosocial behavior. And when we talk about sustainable development, there are different dimensions to this. So it's social sustainability, environmental sustainability, and economical sustainability. And when we talk about social sustainability, we might even it's not just about. I think also Mark also wrote a comment on it. It's not just about what we see as CO2 emissions. It's also about how much noise pollution we are creating, and how much, for example, what kind of, for example, behaviors are we bringing to the road. And a good example is the interaction with drivers and pedestrians, or drivers and other cyclists and other road users. Now that we are in the streets with manual driving situation, there are many conditions that if you brake really hard in front of a cyclist, you show them something like, I'm sorry, or that's this prosocial behavior. Or if you're accidentally drive into a puddle of water and make someone wet on the street, that's also, you also show them, excuse me. But and that's also prosocial behavior, because if you make someone like a cyclist wet on the street and they get aggressive and they start like trying to teach you how you should drive, then that might lead to a collision or an accident or some behavior that make the whole network of the traffic situation in something that we don't want to have. And therefore, when we talk about sustainability, it's not only about environmental effects, it's also about, I mean, we see light and noise pollution as also effects of things that affecting the environment for sure, and which is not the climate change. But on the other side, we also have other behaviors when you remove a human from the whole loop of interaction. When you don't have the human who says that you got the way, you can, I'm sorry, or thank you for giving me the way, or the human who doesn't care and has their head down doing something else. You might also result in behaviors in this whole social network of traffic situation that is not optimal. And yes, I think sustainable behavior is not just environmental, and it's also social.
Great, very interesting ideas. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Shadan, thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
thanks for joining us, because this is our last conversation actually for this 2020-21 series. So thank you for helping us, Shadan, close the series. So with such
Thanks
a
for
wonderful
inviting. It was very
event.
nice.
We do have some exciting plans for 21-22, and we'll tell you about them soon. But just, you know, and briefly, we are going to restart in September, so we'll have more information about that soon.